I can. Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great there. And how are
Excellent.
you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well.
So, firstly, thank you very much for accepting my invitation and accepting to
Not a
be on my
problem.
show.
No, not a problem. It's a pleasure.
So, I thought to tell about you and the work that you are doing and your work experience in detail to my audience.
Sure, sure. If that's useful, more than happy to share. It's been a long and tortuous road. So
So, before talking about you and your work, can you please introduce yourself?
sure. Yeah. My name is Daren Fulwell. I'm a product evangelist for a company called IP Fabric, who we produce network assurance, automated network assurance software. So it's all about building and understanding how networks work, and then presenting that in an automated fashion. So there's loads of detailed networking design and engineering work there, combined with network automation, which of course is what everyone's super interested in at the moment. So yeah, it's an interesting job.
You are from?
I'm from near Manchester in England, so is where I'm based, and always have been actually. It's I don't think I'd ever want to travel. Little bit of a long way from where you are at the moment.
So, you are an network architect.
Yeah, that's been my role for quite a while. Yeah, I mean, I interestingly that's part of what I do now is as a job is the network architecture. I'm actually kind of lucky enough to do a lot of automation stuff now as well as part of what I do. But yeah, I have been in the networking space for a long time. You could probably go back to like the 1990s when I really sort of started in that space. And so yeah, gosh, 30 years almost. So yeah, I've been doing this thing quite a while. Started as a support guy, did my support, did my certifications, learned how to build projects and design networks, and then into network architecture. Yeah, the way grows with experience, right?
So, you started in Manchester Metropolitan University, network officer, information system officer, admin,
Yeah.
support officer. I think it's 1997.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back a little bit further than that, because I did a degree at Manchester University many years ago, finished in 1992 in computer science. And while I was doing that, I took some summer jobs. And one of the summer jobs I had was working on, thick Ethernet, thin Ethernet environment with Novell servers. So all of these things probably don't mean a great deal to people. Go back and check your history. But basically, what with that and the study, I kind of got a bit of a bug for networking straight away, because I could. With those old networks, you saw the cables running between the computers. You saw the cables going into the bridges that connected those cables together, and then to the circuits that ran off to another location. And you could almost hear the collisions of frames as they were being transmitted onto the cables. It was that kind of thing. You were so close to the networking actually as it happened. So it was a real, I don't know, it really appealed to me very strongly, because I understood the theory and I could see the practice. And so when I left university and started work at the university down the road, I started as a support guy, right, working on desktop PCs and using WordPerfect, right, a word processor that's long dead now, but at the time was the biggest one that people were using. I was a support guy for WordPerfect, and it grew and grew and grew into the server side of things, into the networking. And over about 5 years, like you say, to sort of 1997, 1998, that sort of period, that was where I was. I was moving into networks as my role, and really getting into routing, switching, ATM, FDDI, all of these old networking technologies again that are long dead now, but were super important at the time. So yeah, it was a really good way. That sort of place is great because the pressures aren't the same as being in a commercial environment. And so I was able to experiment a bit, and able to try things, and able to spend time learning. And that was super positive for me, because it meant that I could really get into it in a way that I probably couldn't have done if I was working for a commercial organization at that time.
So completing your degree in computer science and doing the practical things, seeing how networks works, how the wires are connected, how things are, the information transfer is happening, seeing completely the real environment. So how was your feeling? What was your first experience that when you came from theory to practical?
Yes, good question. I think the important thing was knowing the fundamentals, right, and being able to have in my mind, right, I know how Ethernet frames are put onto a wire, so I know what goes into them in order to get them from one place to another. So I know how a PC picks that up off the wire and what it does with it once it processes it, and so on. And so all of that stuff really was fantastic, because what it meant was, when I actually sat down at a PC and started connecting to services that were across that network. And remember, at that time, we weren't really using internet services. This was all local stuff. We were barely using TCP/IP at that stage. Most of the services we were running using IPX to the Novell servers that we had on the local network. So we were literally going no further than the local segment, and so everything was there in front of you. You had a sniffer, right, that you could put onto the wire to see what was going on across that network, and that was it. So you were literally dealing with MAC addresses, with frame formats, with all of those things at that fundamental layer. Okay, before you even worry about TCP/IP and that sort of stuff layered on top. So it was brilliant, because you, like I say, you were so close to the signals on the wire, and being able to really understand what was going on. And having had that opportunity to study it first meant that I had a head start, really, because I already understood that, already knew that, and so it made it easier to understand what was happening then when you started looking at the packet captures on Sniffer. So yeah, it was super useful.
So any experience that you cannot forget as a network officer at that time? It's too long, but do you remember anything?
It's not that long. No, I remember my first day in an actual network job. So I was given the opportunity to do some changes. And I mean, these are problems that we all face at some stage, I suppose. But my very first change, I remember, it was, so we used to use these things, these managed hubs, which were a bit like a switch, like a chassis-based switch now, but it was instead of having every switch port on a VLAN and that sort of thing, it was completely different. What you did was you had a common bus across the back of this hub, all of the line cards connected to these bus, and what you could do, you could partition the bus across the back to create separate segments. So you didn't have VLANs. VLANs didn't exist at that point. This was all about being able to partition this multi blade hub. And the way that we used to use it was to have separate networks. We'd have an administrative network, we'd have a student network, and we'd have an academic network in the middle. And we'd have routers that would route between them elsewhere. And when you configure a server, a Novell server, you have to make sure that it's configured with the right network, and so it can broadcast its position, and so people understand what services it's providing, that sort of thing. But there's a bit of a problem if you configure it on the wrong network and it sees conflicting networks. It beeps. Simple. It's just the normal PC bell, beep, 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 and until you know instantly, right, okay, I need to change that because I've made a mess of it. Fine. My problem was I went in my very first day. I was given this change to do of inserting a new card into the backplane of one of these devices, and I messed up on the partitioning of the backplane. So what I ended up doing was basically putting two networks on one, and so all of the servers on both of those two networks started beeping. Now, our office was next to the server room. You walk through the door, and you've got rack after rack after rack of compact ProLiant servers beeping at you. It's not very pretty. It's not a very, very nice thing to be facing on your first day in a job. So you have to learn from these mistakes, right? Because no one was able to access anything because all of these devices went off the network. Like I say, you have to do these things to learn from it. So I mean, I learned a very important lesson that day, is that failure is temporary, right? It's about you fail at something, you break something, you fix it, and you learn from it, and then you move on. And that was, you learn that instantly at that point. So, but no, I mean, oh gosh, no, there's lots and lots of stories like that about things that went wrong. So, but we'll not worry about too many of those.
Great. And the next job was you as a senior engineer at Mass and Communications at 1998.
Yeah.
8 months you worked there. So
yeah, I didn't stay in that job very long. It was a consultancy role. So I was at that stage I'd done some certifications in Novell. Pretty high certifications, and I thought I knew my thing. It was all good. I didn't know much about Microsoft at that stage. I was still learning, really. I'd kind of learned about the sort of the Ethernet side of things, about ATM and sort of network contracts. So I was quite happy, and I thought, yeah, I can do better than this. I can do bigger and better things, and I got a bit ahead of myself, really. So I went to join this consultancy and realized very quickly that while I was a very competent network engineer, I wasn't a consultant, right? I wasn't someone who could stand up in front of a room and present and explain design concepts and those sorts of things. That was too much. And so 8 months was I lasted quite a while, but I wasn't my best time. It wasn't my best time. But again, you see, you have to fail to learn. So it was about understanding what was wrong, and then go and finding something to improve that. So
engineering is different from consulting. So how you say that difference, the two persons in you, the consulting person and an engineer?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, from I suppose it's about the doing and the telling, isn't it? And being able to, and to some extent the design as well. So there is a natural progression through all of this that you almost have to do something to understand it well enough to explain to someone else how to do it. But then you also, and I thought I did that, at that stage, I thought I was definitely at that stage. But the problem then is you need to learn how to communicate it. And I didn't have that in me at all at that stage. I could write a document, but the way I wrote it was as if I were going to build it myself, rather than explaining to somebody else how to do it and why to do it. And I think there is a more natural progression through engineering, through almost start the support side of things into the development side of things, so that you understand, right, this is ultimately, we all have to build networks that can be supported, because if they can't be supported, they're not going to be able to run a service. So that's the absolute bare minimum, is the support and understanding from a supportability point of view. Yes, the network can be supported to deliver the service. So when you design and build something, you have to build it so it's supportable. That's ultimately, where that sits. So you have to have done support to start. Then you can kind of understand how to build networks, not just because you add this thing to that thing and connect this thing to that thing, but that somebody else is going to come in and have to look after it once you walk away. So once you've done that, you're then in a position to do the design side of things, to be able to say, right, okay, I know that to provide this service, I need to use a bit of this and a bit of that and bring those together and whatever. Do that high level design that you can then hand off to someone to go build, who can then hand it off to someone else to go support. And then you go the step above that, the architecture side, where you're then looking at, right, how do people want to use this service, and what does that mean in terms of what I have to deliver in the design? So you're then looking at, okay, server infrastructure or cloud or where people are located, and all of these kinds of more important application type things, to say, I want to bring all those things together into and build an architecture for the network. And then at the next layer down, someone will design those aspects of the network. The next layer down, someone will build that. The next layer down, someone will support that. And you've got to make sure that whatever you architect up here is supportable down here as well. So I think that chain, if you can build that chain into your career of having done support, do engineering, do design, do architecture, you're then in a position where you can sit down with a customer and explain to them at the top or at the bottom why things are the way they are and whatever. And for me, that's what I found. Like you say, that was almost a false start when I was doing that consultancy. It was like, oh no, I'm not ready yet. So stop, go back. Do more engineering, do more design, more implementation to build up and understand all of the aspects that I needed to in order to be this network architect, who can then consult as part of that process. You reach a point where you can then be a consultant, because you can sit down and you can understand all of the different aspects and explain why a certain design is better than another. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what my next question is. So this senior engineering position, how that is in senior engineering position in 1998, how that position, that knowledge, that information, that implementation and that observations are helping you to be a good network architect today.
Well, in that particular role, so it was interesting, because it was, while it says senior engineer, the 8-month one, it was more, like I say, it was more working as a consultant. So it was a really difficult balance. But there were some really interesting things that you see, and this is important as well, right? If you go into something that's problematic, you can still learn from that experience, because you're still looking around you saying, well, what can I take from that experience? What can I learn? And in that particular role, for example, I spent a lot of time almost working with people to try and take them from Novell services to Windows NT, it was at the time. So all of a sudden I had a door open about understanding more about Windows and the Windows server infrastructure. So it gave me the ability to, even while I was struggling, I was learning something new. And I think that's probably the most important point, is all the time look for something new to learn that might not be in your core job, but it might be that it's relevant because it just sits outside or uses the services that are in your core job. So application development is people are looking at network automation at the moment, are learning about application development. Well, that's great, because it's not just relevant to automation, it's relevant to the people who are using your network service to go deliver applications, right? So the more you understand about what people are using your service for, the better equipped you are to build them the right solution.
It's amazing. And
sorry, while you're looking for that, I realize there's a lot of noise behind me. Just to be clear, I've got a snoring dog down here and a shouting cat out there. So there may be other animals as well in the background as we go, but just ignore them. It's all good.
It will be natural.
Yeah, exactly.
So coming to your next job, you started working as a network analyst in Royal and Sun Alliance from 1998 to 2000, 1 year, 10 months. Yeah. So how was that experience?
Yeah, so that was an interesting time, because what people were fast realizing at that stage was that really everything wanted to be Ethernet. There was a lot of other networking technologies. I've already mentioned ATM and FDDI. This was a financial institution, so they had mainframes, and wherever you had at that time IBM mainframe, you had token ring involved. So there was ATM, token ring, FDDI, all of these other things there, and so it was all about learning how they worked, how they interacted with Ethernet. But then towards the end of my time there, we were looking at how you migrated on from those things to Ethernet. We started getting rid of the ATM and replacing it with gigabit Ethernet. We started taking out the token ring and replacing it with Ethernet connectivity into the mainframes and those are the other devices that were necessary to deliver those mainframe services. So there was a lot of understanding the very specific applications for the financial organization, understanding what it took to deliver an insurance service, but also looking at the technologies and how you move them on, right? So it's all about the projects then and this is something you'll see every time you deliver a network project, right? Through your career, you'll see this. You have an existing network and you have a target network, and you've got to migrate everything off this one to this one. But in the meantime, those two things are connected together. So there's always, your network grows before it shrinks back down again, effectively. So there's always a kind of technical debt issue to worry about here. You've always got to be concerned with how did things work, how will things work, and how will they work while I'm migrating from one to the other. Yeah, and really, really important, because everything has to continue to work. You can't just turn the network off, move everyone onto the new one and turn it all back on again, right? There's just in this day and age, that is just something that can't happen. Now, luckily, we don't have quite so many complex technologies to deal with. What we do instead is we build software-defined networks that layer across the top and have all the complexity there instead. And we just move complexity around, really, is all we ever do. So we've just got to be concerned with, right, how does one thing work, how does the other thing work, and how do they interact? So that's what I really learned from that experience, I think.
So before that, you worked as a senior engineer. So how that senior engineering position helped you in doing your network analyst job?
I think I think all of the jobs, I mean, this is the thing, it's just an accumulation. You're always gathering more information and more knowledge. So for that, if you go back to the very beginning and all the stuff I knew about PCs and about servers, and then as I moved on to looking at migration approaches, take those two things together, and then that led into what I was then doing at the insurance company, because really it was about understanding how projects are built and then how you execute on them to move things on. I mean, the biggest problem with most network projects is you start with an existing, you have a new, and you go through a migration, but you always inevitably leave something behind. There's always something that's left over on the old. It might be that compared to that, it may just be that you've just got a little bit in the old network left, but it's still there. And so I think that whole idea of the complexity of the interactions between old and new, and the idea of technical debt, where there's always a bit of the old stuff left that you have to handle and deal with. Those are the things that I learned and took on with me into that role, I think.
Great. And you were working as a senior infrastructure and analyst at 2002 2004 in HBOS. So how was that experience, and what that job taught you?
It's interesting because it's really a very similar role, but the next stage. So then it was about not just implementing someone else's work, but building projects myself. So if you imagine that we've started with the support role, we've thought that we could do consultancy, and then sort of said no, we can't do that, and gone back to an engineering role. So really spent the time delivering other people's projects. Now this next role was all about building my own project, so starting to do the design work and whatever in order to so that other people could deliver the projects. So it was really then a question of all those things I mentioned about understanding support, understanding what it takes to deliver, bringing that into a low-level design type role where you're really now sort of saying, well, okay, technically, where do I put my VLANs? How do I connect my devices? Where do I route that traffic? How do I use the capabilities of these boxes in order to deliver the application services my customer wants? So it was this was another bank. So from a change perspective, it was very tightly controlled. And obviously there was a political aspect to what we were doing as well. So it was really important that everything was properly developed, implemented within time constraints, and tested properly before the change was completed. And so really that was what I learned through this process, really, was the fact that in this kind of organization, these were the things that you needed to do to make sure that you kept that level of availability across what was a super important organization at that point. So yeah, I think the really important aspect was exactly that. It was about the fact that this was that the organizations have different requirements for change and different requirements for network availability, and that you have to adapt the way that you deliver that to match. And so again, it's starting to become, this job then wasn't about just networks and just the technical aspects, but listening to the business side of things and starting to say, well, what do the business need in order for me to make sure that we maintain our availability? And we were, because it was so controlled, because it was so well structured, we managed to keep the network completely available. So for that time that you mentioned there, we didn't have anything approaching a major outage which affected everybody. There were pockets of outage, but no major outage that affected everybody.
So understanding technology, understanding how the infrastructure and the and the technical things works, and also understanding the requirements and the business needs of the organization. How these two are two different fields, business and technology. So how this engineer in you and this a person who is very good in communicating and understanding the the technology and giving what things, technical things are required to match the needs. So how you are able to do that work?
Yeah, it's I guess it's really about understanding your users, right? So and it's pretty it's now I think of it, it's really obvious, and yet it's not a lot of the time, because we do don't we sort of, we're working on a technical problem, you go look down at that technical problem, focus on it, right? If in order to do this I need to make sure I can do this, this and this. But what you and this is the point really where I learned that what you've got to think about is not just that you have to do something, but it's the impact of doing that on everybody who uses that service. So I guess, I mean, the answer to your question is to go find it, go listening to people who use your service to find out what their requirement is for you. Because if they can't use their services, their application services, whatever it is they're using, their IoT infrastructure, if people can't get into the building because the network's down, because the card swipe's not working, these are the kinds of things that make you realize the impact of a network. Ultimately, that network underpins everything that happens in that organization now. Right, there are no such thing as manual processes anymore in terms of how the business functions. So you have to consider all the time. You have to be thinking, right, if I make this change, does that affect anybody who's using this networking service? And it's a shift in the way you think. But again, it feels to me like it comes with experience. If you've gone through this process of understanding the support, so where you're effectively answering tickets and dealing with one-off issues, to building networks to other people's specifications, so understanding the technologies and understanding how it all pins together, to then thinking about designing that, but making sure that, because this is the point, when you get to that point when you're doing the design, you have to start thinking, well, what am I designing? Why am I designing what I'm designing? It's all about delivering a service and making sure that you understand what that service requirement is. Because what's the point in building a network that's super high available and it's got two of everything and dual links here and there and everywhere, if you've got an application that they only run once a week? There's no need for all of this expense and this resilience if there's no requirement for it in order to deliver the service. So you've got to make the effort to understand what those services are that are running on the network and what the implications are for that network, if that makes sense.
So understanding the communication between devices and the physical things, the technical things, and understanding human beings communicating with them, which one you like, communicating with the machines or with the human beings?
But if I'm honest, that the whole point of networking is that you do both, right? And I think that for me, it's being able to communicate with the humans, understand what it is that they want, then go in and communicate with the machines to make sure that they deliver the right thing, right? And then coming back to the humans and saying, is this what you need? And then going, yeah, that's what I need. That's the bit I like, is when they go at the end going, yeah, that's exactly what I was looking. And then when you can give them something else that's a little bit even better still, then yeah, it's the same with everyone. We all want to make sure that we get the right feedback for the things we do, right? So everyone wants that. But the only way you can deliver that is if you go at the very beginning and make sure that you understand what the requirement is before you deliver something.
So you are saying that the engineering position and the support position and anything which you did in the ground level helped you in understanding things better today in this position.
Completely, because like I say, if you can't see, this is the thing as well. When you build a network, and so when you architect the network and you design it and you implement it, if you can't support it, if you can't maintain it, if it can't be, if the support people can't make sure it stays up, then you're not fulfilling your brief at the beginning. You might have designed the most fantastic network, and it might be super intricate. It might have loads of different protocols running and redistributing and be really, really complex, but deliver a technical solution to a problem. But if someone can't sit down and maintain it, if something breaks, then you may as well not have bothered. You may as well just have given people a wire, because it needs to be able to deliver the service and keep delivering the service, and so it needs to be maintainable, it needs to be supportable. So if you've been in a position where you understand how difficult it is as a support person to keep that service going, you're not going to design something as a designer that would have made your life more difficult back when you were a support person. Does that make sense? So there is that continuity all the way through, and I think you learn things as you go and you take them with you, and you're always thinking what makes service best. That's the key.
Great. So you also worked as senior customer engineer in 2004, from 2004 to 2008. So how was that experience, senior customer engineer?
Yeah, so that was very cool. That was working for a large, would you say service provider? Kind of. I mean, basically, I was out working with customers, so doing design work, doing implementation work for customers directly. So going to different customers, understanding different requirements from different types of organizations, and implementing networking to make those things happen. Now, in that time, towards the end of that time, I did my CCIE, and it was almost like having a massive CCIE lab of lots of different customer networks to go practice on. So I would, one week I might be looking at building an MPLS network for one customer. Another one I might be looking at DMVPN or whatever, their WAN infrastructure. And because it was literally a different technology every week, and just learning. And I was actually working with another CCIE at that time who was doing all the design work, and he was amazing. I mean, he was an incredible guy, this amazing brain. He would sit me down on a Monday morning and say, right, we're going to design something this week. We're going to design an MPLS network this week. And over the week, you would, on a whiteboard, from top to bottom, design this MPLS network and work out all the config that's needed and so on. And then the following week, you'd just go configure it and build it. You can't buy practice like that particularly for a CCIE or something, because we were just doing it every day. And so that was, for me, it was a very selfish role for me, that one, because I'd spent all of this time getting to this stage from the ground up, and now it was about me just taking in as much as I possibly could from my mentor and from the customers we were working with in their networks. Fantastic, really, really good. But then, I got my CCIE, and all of a sudden things change when you get to that stage. So
great. And next, you worked as a network architect in VocaLink from 2008 to 2009. 1 year you worked. So any experience that you cannot forget in that position as a network architect?
Yeah, I mean that one was interesting. It was because it was basically I got my CCIE and all of a sudden I was able to implement these incredible networks and all the rest of it. And then I didn't do any more implementation for a year. I went to do design work effectively for another financial organization. And so it was a year where I sort of shifted my focus a little bit really and started looking at security. I built a remote access solution and various other bits and pieces around security. And so I spent really, again, I was going back to learning about an organization and about their approach. This was, if anything, even more regulated than the bank that I worked for previously. So this was very, very tightly regulated, very well understood, very, very structured. And it was really just an opportunity to just stretch myself in an area a bit different to the one I'd focused on previously. So using different vendor equipment, we were using Juniper firewalls and various things at that point. Just really branching out a little bit and trying a different thing.
And you worked as a network solution specialist for 1 year, 2009 to 2010. So how was that?
So this was at another bank and doing more security. So this was again a thing of going, well, actually, so at this stage I was freelancing, right? I was on contract, so I was working contracts to really gather more experience and understand more things. So I'd done some Juniper firewalls in that year, so I moved on to this new role where it was again a bit more Juniper firewalls, but F5 was my big thing at this organization, and it was all about load balancing, about global traffic management, about again a bit more security from the firewall perspective, but it was about external services. So we were building all of the online banking capabilities and these sorts of things, the outward facing services, not dealing with internal customers, but dealing with customers across the internet. Okay. And so again, it was about take everything you've done and then learn something new and bolt it on and keep learning more and more and more and get an experience of doing new things. For me, it was the first time I'd really sort of got into the structure of applications and how applications are delivered and how they work for customers and really sort of get into the nitty gritty. The F5 was a great product at that point. I don't know how it is now. It was really interesting to learn lots going on with that. So and their educational material was fantastic. So again, a lot of it was a learning experience.
Awesome. And next, you worked as a solutions architect at VocalLink from 2010 to 12. So network solutions architect. So how was that?
So this was going back really to the organization I'd been at previously, taking what I'd learned from the contracts in between into a role where they had a particular requirement. So what happened? The organization had two data centers in the north and two data centers in the south of England, and these data centers were all different. They weren't very well structured. They were all different. They were stretched VLANs and all kinds of horrible things going on across the switched infrastructure. The switch infrastructure in the north was so sprawling that it actually you could almost lose packets from one end to the other. It was unbelievable. The because of the way things have grown organically, there were some really interesting problems around these sorts of things. So what we did was I got brought back in to work with the team on creating a completely new data center infrastructure using Cisco Nexus products, which had only just come out at that stage. So it's all about building Nexus 7K, Nexus 5K, Nexus 2K, both north and south, interconnected across gigabit connections across the country. This was and then securing it, so using firewalls or whatever in order to carve things up. And so it was really, really interesting, because obviously in this sort of organization, that 100% availability is super important. And so we had to really, really dig down and understand exactly how applications were working, so that if you pick it up and move it into the new infrastructure, it works, right? It's got to work. It's got to fail over, and then it's got to work when you bring it back. So this role was all new switching infrastructure, which no one had dealt with before, because even Cisco were at that stage cagey. Let's just say that it was an early implementation, but then it was this whole thing of actually digging into the weeds of understanding how applications worked and mapping them out so that you could understand this has to interact with that, which is if we're going to pick this DNS service up and we're going to move it into behind a firewall, so we need to create firewall rules to allow this thing to be able to use that service, and so on and so forth. And it was mapping all of these things out was the key part to it. But it was ultimately successful. I mean, and it was super important that we dealt with it in that way, so that we could maintain that availability again. It all comes down to that. It's the business requirement, yeah. It's understanding what that means and what the implications are for that.
Great. And you worked as an consultant engineer in 2012 to 13.
I'm just trying to think who that one was for. Which one was that? Gosh.
At BT INET.
Oh yeah. Sorry, INET. Yeah, I mean that was the thing. So I got to a point where that project sort of reached a conclusion, and so then I moved on again back to a different part of BT, but as a consultant. So this is the point where now I've realised actually I've managed to sort of accumulate enough knowledge and experience along the way in order to really become a consulting engineer, is what that kind of role was. So it was actually delivering service to a customer, but doing the sort of low level design aspects as well, right? So it's all of those things, and with lots of different customers and working on different types of projects every day. I was going from a DMVPN rollout maybe to a security piece, to starting to use. I mean, at that stage people were starting to use ISE to deliver 802.1x capability into the network. So we were doing those things. We were sort of small to medium sized companies delivering them new service and really just working with them to understand how the impact of what we were doing on what they were doing. So yeah, so I was just really starting to stretch my legs a little bit with the consulting side, ready for the next job.
Wow. And you worked as a technical architect networking at ANS Group.
Yeah, so that role I actually joined as a consultant. I worked as a consultant for probably 3 months, and then I was given the opportunity to be promoted to a technical architect. And really what that meant was, in that organization, was working with the bigger customers on architecture. So working with them, helping them understand how we would deliver large projects and break them up into smaller pieces of design work and how they'd interact. But also overseeing a team. So now I led a team of network consultants, and so I worked with each one of those guys in the team to help them to be an escalation point if they had a problem, or if they had a particular design query or whatever they wanted to ask. They'd come to me first. but I'd also be there as a kind of a mentor to help them develop themselves in the way that I'd developed. So now I was getting into the position where I was able to help other people do the same things that I'd done to build them up and give them the opportunity to do new things. So I stuck around there quite a while because there was a lot to do in that. We were always looking at new technologies. We were always looking at really making sure that our people were able to manage them and in those new technologies as well. So often I would learn a new technology first so that I could then hand it off to other people in my team and that sort of thing. It was cool. I mean, ANS are, now they're a major cloud and application development organization. The cloud is the biggest part of what they do. And we were early to that party about really pushing and understanding from a networking point of view what it meant to be in the cloud. That was super important. A lot of other people all just went, right, okay, yeah, cloud, you just bolt it on the side and you do some stuff over here and the magic happens, and completely miss the fact that there are really important aspects to it that you need to understand from a networking perspective in order to deliver a service. And so it was really, really important. My team very quickly got up to speed with understanding what it meant to be in the cloud and to connect to the cloud. And so, yeah, it was an interesting time.
Great. And you worked right now you're working as a contributor in Init6, hashtag Init6, and
So Init6 is an interesting thing. We through all this time, obviously, I mentioned I'd got my CCIE. I also picked up a CCDE. So that's the design expert qualification. So I'd gone through that process, and after I'd been that for a while, and I'd been involved with a couple of community things. Just I got some contacts. I did some work on the Cisco community website and various bits and pieces. I was approached to join something called the CCIE Advisory Council, which is a Cisco organization within the learning part of Cisco. And what it is basically it's a group of about 30 of us, 30 CCIEs who are out, who don't work for Cisco, who Cisco used to consult on the certification program. So as they make changes to the certification program, they'll talk to us about it, and we're, if you like, the voice of the engineer on that process. So we help them understand what the outside world wants from that program. And we were just looking at the DevNet certifications. They were just starting to be worked on and developed. The ideas were starting to come through, and a group of us on the council decided that this was actually something that was going to change a lot. It was going to change a lot of the way that we do things. We could all see network automation was a thing, but all of a sudden there was a structure to it and a way to approach it and a way to get there. And the idea of providing certification in there to give people the push they needed to actually do these things suddenly worked for us. So basically there were about 6 of us initially. We all got together and we started saying, well, look, what we'll do is we'll take people on the journey with us, right? We'll learn the stuff ourselves, and we'll record videos and we'll have discussions with people and we'll do things and we'll make noise to help people, to push people on and bring them with us. And that was Init6. So the idea with Init6 then, so there's a YouTube channel. There's, I think you can join us, follow us on LinkedIn or whatever. And there's a like I say, there's about 8 or 9 of us now. And it's all about mentoring. It's all about taking people with you, and as you grow, people grow with you. That's what it's all about. And so basically we're getting old, right? And we want to give some of our knowledge and experience to people who can do something with it, right? Rather than us getting old and it all disappearing. So yeah, that's the idea. But yeah, it's good fun. I mean, the guys are awesome. They are so talented, and they've got so much knowledge and experience that it'd be an absolute waste if they didn't share it. So I'm just glad to be part of it.
So you are a network automation evangelist right now. So how this complete information you acquired and collected through all the jobs that you did, how that complete that observations, how
Yeah.
things work, the technological things, devices, servers, data centers, the complete universal knowledge of this networks, how this complete information is helping you to boost yourself and do the work that you're doing as a network automation evangelist, how that is pushing you forward.
I think it's fairly obvious that network automation's got a bit of an image problem, I think, a little bit, because if you look at what most people talk about when they talk about network automation, they're talking about automatically pushing configuration or policy into things, whether that's through writing scripts or whether that's through using an SDN controller or whatever. But ultimately, it's about having some template stuff and pushing it into devices to make sure that those devices are configured in a standardized way. And I think there's so much more to what network automation can bring. And this is where it sort of goes back to all of the things that I've talked about, really, about providing a service. Because if you think about a new application when it lands on a network, the things that need to be done to that network to make that application work might be, you might have to create a new VLAN in your data center infrastructure. You might have to trunk that VLAN to the servers. You might have to route that subnet for that VLAN into the network and into the WAN. That WAN might be an SD-WAN. It might be a standard WAN, or it might be VPN tunnels. You might have to make changes in the firewalls to allow access to that application. You might then have to make changes at your access network in order to create a new SSID for that application to be for people to gain access to that application from a particular part of the organization. And you might have to, I don't know, change your security so it can get to the internet or whatever. So there's a whole bunch, you can see a whole bunch of different changes in different parts of the network infrastructure that need to be made to deliver that application, right? And I think network automation in itself will address one part of that over and again, because you can, I can push a VLAN here, or I can push an SSID there, or yes, I can do this, and yes, I can do that. But what you need to be able to do is orchestrate that into one activity and then make it quick. And this is the problem, right? Is the agility. Everyone's always complained about the agility of a network team. The problem with those things I just talked about was you might be talking about 3 different teams there. You might be talking about a team that looks after the WAN, a team that looks after the data center, and a team that looks after the campus networks. And so you might have to raise changes into the 3 different ones, and they might not necessarily know exactly what the configuration is that the other one is delivering. And so they have to sit down and go through it all and understand it all, and so on and so forth. The point with the automation here is to coordinate all of that and bring all of that together, to have that single view almost of the whole thing, not just one part of it.
So this complete knowledge that you earned in being different positions, and you're not only just acquire knowledge, you're giving that back to the society, back to the organization, back to the human beings. You're helping them in understanding the entire the technical things. So how what do you understand the completely about these networks and data centers, servers, how this complete package that we as a human beings are doing with doing and creating impact in the society, how this is how what we are going to give to the next generation.
Sure, sure. No, I think it's a really good question. And of course, the danger with something like automating everything means that people don't understand necessarily everything that's happening. They just assume, oh yeah, no, if I just automate the things, then all I need to do is run the automation and everything will be fine. Um, I think it is whatever happens, it's super important, okay, to understand the fundamentals of what networking actually is and how it works, and don't trust the automation to solve all your problems, because otherwise what will happen is you'll have the automations, and when something isn't quite right, you just run the automation again and hope that it fixes the problem and whatever, and you lose sight of what it is you're trying to achieve. So I mean, it's not really the question you asked, but I think the most important point is that you build your knowledge up, you understand from a fundamental level what it is that's going on in the network, and then you layer on top of it your extra understanding as you go. I the message is often that automation simplifies your network. It doesn't at all, in the slightest. And SDN doesn't either. What it's doing is hiding the complexity, not making it simpler. And I think it's really important to appreciate the difference there, because if anything, it's a worse position to hide that than it is to have it and make it and have it visible. You need to understand where you've got two networks that come together, how they interact. Because if you don't understand that, when that overlay breaks for whatever reason, you're never going to be able to fix it. You're going to have to get someone else to do it for you. And I think that's just going to slow the whole process back down. So it's all about understanding how everything works together to deliver that consumable layer. I suppose that layer on top of automation is fantastic because it makes things consumable, but you still need to understand what's going on underneath that layer. And it is more complex than it's probably ever been, because it needs to be in order to deliver services the way that we need them delivered. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So one general question.
Mm.
So you understood the information transfer between devices. You understood the connectivity between the things, the machines which have no life. So what do you say about the communication between human beings? How do you relate that to the reality?
That's wow. That's deep. No, it's a really good valid point. I mean, and we see it today. Actually, it's interesting. I've just noticed apparently Facebook have had fewer logins through January than any month, or sorry, than they did in the previous month. So it's the first month ever where fewer people have logged in, right, to Facebook. And I think that tells a little bit of a story, if nothing else, that you think of with the pandemic and whatever that we've just been through or just been going through. You've got to stop and have human time, right? You can't think that the machines are gonna always serve those communication needs. It's brilliant. It's incredible that I can stand here in England talking to you thousands of miles away, and you're set up on your phone, and we're chatting like this. It's awesome, absolutely incredible, because it gives us an opportunity to connect human to human. I think the danger is that what you don't want to do is the sort of get too wrapped up in the mass communication aspect. So the Facebooks, the social media is great, but it's really not as well. And I think it is that thing of being cagey and just be looking out for yourself a little bit, and just making sure that you don't just allow all of that information in without having the ability to stop it and just walk away from it, and I think that it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? I think it's been a brilliant tool to connect with like-minded individuals and to share information and that sort of thing. But you also have to be careful that you don't end up being brainwashed is a strong word, but it's that kind of idea of just letting information come into your mind and just believing it, and I think you have to be critical about the information you're receiving. But yeah, I think it's an interesting challenge, I think, isn't it? It's brilliant for one-to-one, brilliant for when you trust the people you're talking to, but when that information's coming from places you're not so sure of, be critical and think carefully about what it is before you assume it's good.
So human networks and computer networks, how these human networks, the connectivity between humans, relationships, and connectivity between places, countries, houses, areas, I'm talking about the connectivity between human beings, different religions, different ideologies, different philosophies, all these human networks. Is that possible for us as a technologist to create something? We like, you saw the upgradation, you saw the technology changing gradually in your complete experience. You saw according to the need, human is developing and creating something which helps and which reduces the human effort, physical, mental energy. So you saw this. So is that possible for us as a human being to, like you said, automate everything, do everything by machines? No human needed for this.
Wow, life would be boring then, though, wouldn't it? I mean, gosh, it's interesting actually. I read a book. Let me see if I can see it here. Yeah. Now this is an old book. This was published back in the, I want to say 19. It could be even the 1920s. So it could even be about 100 years old. If you can see that one. It's called The Machine Stops by Ian Forster. And yeah, it's very Victorian English literature, but the story is that essentially everybody lives underground, right? There's been some apocalyptic event, and everyone now lives underground, and everyone relies on a machine to do everything for them. So there's kind of TV communication, and there's tubes underground that where machines bring you food, and you basically don't have to get out of your chair to live and survive. And then one day the machine stops, and it's just a story of what that means. And there's a parallel, because if you imagine the internet is effectively the same thing, couldn't you? You could just live I could live in this room and have things delivered to me and talk to whoever I want to talk to and so on. But I think there's a really important thing that we need to sort of we need that human connection. That's super important, and we need to make sure that we understand the differences between us, but really not allow those differences to affect the way we behave. And I think this is the key for me. This is a great enabler, because how else would I be able to talk to you, right? You contacted me through Twitter to chat. We started chatting, and now we'll stay connected and we'll continue to exchange stuff. And that's because you're a human and I'm a human. We're interested in the same thing, right? Networking, and that's what we do. And I think if we take it at face value like that, then it's really no different to face-to-face communication in person. It's just I couldn't possibly do that unless I got on a plane and came over to see you. I think the opportunity is there to use this for good, to really just break down some barriers and really sort of enable communication that wasn't possible before. But I think the biggest problem is, as the problem has always been with humans, is the getting past our differences, isn't it? It's men talking to women, it's black people talking to white people. It is what it is, and we need to take responsibility for ourselves to get past that and break those things down. I think so. I just think it's tough, and just modern life doesn't make it any easier with the crazy social media site. And this is where the problems do come, right? Where you have the opportunity for extreme views to be put forward and people to subscribe to them, without thinking about it. And there's if you think of it, you could argue things like social medias and hashtags might actually be automation of thinking to some extent, because it's like, say, taking that you remove that critical thinking from your brain and just let you let Twitter feed you nonsense about a hashtag that you might be interested in, and you just accept it and take it in. You've got to be critical.
So, as an experienced person, I'm sure you understand the information transfer between the Earth and the space station, the networks.
Sure.
Right. So, how, as a human beings, how far we went in terms of information transfer, where we went? Are we still on the Earth, or we went? Elon Musk is saying that we have to build. It's important for us to build houses or colonies in Mars, and also he said that it's important human to have an alternate. So as a person who is into network and understands this data centers,
Yeah.
how safe we are we able to give the safe information to the next generation? If this conversation is heard by,
wow,
after 100 years, if somebody is hearing this conversation, so what you want to tell to those people about present things, if they are hearing this, and that important points to help them in creating the better technology or the better things?
I guess, wow, that's a great question. You caught me out with that one. I guess in my mind, it's about never losing the ability to question, isn't it? It's about always thinking about what you're hearing and validating in your own mind. Is that right? Is it and not right as in correct. I mean, that's important, but right as in what suits your moral and ethical stance. We have to be able to retain that critical thought. Gosh, what a great question. I think there are enough people who believe the right things, that we can get past these sorts of issues. But people do need to be critical about what they hear and not accept. I'm not a crazy. I'm not someone who's going to say accept nothing and go looking for the truth and finding it in weird places and whatever. I'm not that. What I am is quite I'm pragmatist. I know and understand that the world can never be perfect. I know and understand that media can never be perfect and whatever. What you have to do is be responsible for your own view. And so what I would say to anyone who would listen to this in the future was, I hope that's how we were. I hope we won, and I hope that's how you are, and I hope you continue to think that way. It's a really good question. It's interesting. I was talking to I can't believe how lucky I was. I managed to talk to a guy called Vince Cerf. I don't know if you're aware of this. Dr. Vince Cerf is he is an evangelist for Google, but he actually invented TCP/IP. right? He's the guy who invented TCP/IP. He also, there's a squirrel just run past your head. That was amazing. So take joy in small things. It's really key. But he has worked on the protocols they use to communicate with the space station, right? With the ISS, and some of his work is being used in preparation for the journey to Mars, because communications is going to be super difficult, isn't it? It's like something out of a sci-fi movie when you think that there's going to be a period of time delay between message leaving Earth and making its way to Mars, if there is a colony gets set up there or whatever that is. And so we need to understand that, and we need to be responsible enough to make sure that it's used in the right way for anyone who does make that journey. It's going to be super interesting. I would have loved to have done it. I suspect I'm going to be too old to do that, but certainly your generation and the generation beyond that are in for a hell of a ride. It's going to be awesome.
So at last, so how far we went, the information that we sent from the Earth, how far it went, and what is our capability or capacity to communicate, and what is the distance that we traveled?
As far as you want, I mean, it amazes me. I'm quite a fan of the space programs. I spend a lot of time, for way too much time, looking at at what's happening with the different probes that are sent out and all the rest of it. And when you start to see that we're already, almost reaching outside our own galaxy with the probes that we're sending out and all the rest of it. In some ways, we're already communicating, way further than we ever thought possible, right? So I don't know. It's a really interesting point. You can't imagine, given the way that we communicate now and the way we understand the physics of our galaxy in order to communicate. I can't imagine a way of stepping outside that and being able to maintain a level of communication. But when you think back, I mean, it's only, 300 years ago, we didn't have the capability to communicate other than in the written word, much beyond, the length of my house. I mean, that's things have moved on so fast. That and our understanding of physics and has moved on so fast that we're able to communicate like millions of miles. Well, I mean, that's just crazy. And yet, who knows whether we'll be able to communicate light years. If we find out what things about wormholes and whatever, physics change as soon as you monkey around with these sort of celestial bodies, right? So who knows? I would love to find out. I would love to be around to find out.
So last one, if SpaceX or NASA is watching or listening to our conversation, so what is your valuable advices to them about the space study?
Sorry, mate, I missed that question. Try again.
So if a SpaceX or NASA, network specialists or people who are working in it, so if they are watching or listening to our conversation and they're listening to you, what do you say? What great advices that you give to them from your experience, which helps them in creating the great things?
I probably don't have much for them really, other than to continue to listen to the people who've been there and done that. The fact I think it's super positive that you've got someone like Vince Cerf involved with these things, and there'll be others, of course, as well, who have such an innate understanding of the challenge that they're able to contribute when the physics are beyond my comprehension, and I think that's the key, is to, because these are people who have seen that challenge already and conquered it within the limits of the physics here on Earth, and so take that experience and apply the new physics, and you're able to move that on. And I think that's, for me, that's the key, is really to not, don't reinvent the wheel, don't try and do things in a different way. Use the experience and the knowledge that we've already accumulated so much of in such a short space of time. I mean, the internet is not even 50 years old yet, right? Work with that, work with these people while we have them, to know how to even approach these problems going forward. But yeah, I mean, ultimately the community, right? It's all about using the people who are here and making the most of that collective knowledge.
So before closing, what do you say about this conversation? What do you feel, and what do you say about my skills and my work on my YouTube channel?
No, listen, I'm super glad to be doing this. This is awesome, and it's great to see. Just keep it up, mate. Keep it up. I was really surprised that you approached me, because I'm just some guy in England doing this stuff, right? But it's really cool, going beyond, breaking barriers down, but going beyond the norms of just picking people to talk to and stuff. I think it's really, really important. The idea of community is for us to share, right? That's the point of this. So if anyone can take anything at all from anything I've said today, then that's fantastic, because I think most of what I've said applies whoever you are and wherever you are. I don't think there's anything that's particularly specific. So if it's useful, use it. One of the reasons we did Init 6 was that we're all old geezers, right? We're all in our 50s, and we've been doing this a long time. And it's really difficult. I mean, mentoring is great on a one-to-one basis, where you can sit down with someone and share with them. But it's really difficult to share your knowledge and more importantly, your experiences with a wider audience. So what you're doing is fantastic, because it's that opportunity for people to do exactly that. For why not learn? If you can't have the experience yourself, why not learn from someone else's experience, right? And that's what you're enabling in doing what you're doing. So keep it up. It's good stuff.
So definitely, if one person, or if one person's skills or anything, if a single person from anywhere on this planet changes, them listening to you, improves their skills, or changes their way of looking at things, and if that helps in their personal development or personal growth, that will be a great thing if they watch or listen to this conversation, and you will be the contributor. You are already contributing through your work, through your organization to this planet, but still you took time for me, and when I asked you, you didn't said no. You gave me opportunity to interview you, and allowed me to ask some questions. That's a great thing, and I'm sure even if it affects one person, it creates impact on one person's thinking, that will be a great thing. This time will be worthy, and I'm sure the words, if this video is saved in server or data center and will be played in after 100 years, that will be a great thing. Some information
That'd be amazing.
They'll pick it.
Yeah, that'd be incredible. Now, listen, thank you for the opportunity to talk. It's been an absolute pleasure, and yeah, as I said to you before, I'm always happy to talk about me. But
so, can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Totally, yeah, and by all means put my contact details on as well. So if anyone wants to reach out at all, more than happy to contact people. Yeah, that'd be great.
So I'll put your web links in the description of this video. People who finds our video on YouTube can see it. If people are listening to this conversation on podcast, you want to spell your social media or in your
Sure,
website?
yeah, I can do. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter. It's at Daren Fulwell. So that's DarenFuellel. And I'm on LinkedIn. So yeah, just search for me on LinkedIn. You'll find me there easily enough. And yeah, always happy to connect and speak more if anyone is interested. Yeah, for sure.
So thank you so much, Darren. Can I
That's a
put this
pleasure, man.
also? Can I also put this audio and video clip on my podcast website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Yeah, of course. No trouble at all. Whatever works for you, mate.
So thank you, Dan. Keep going, keep doing
Pleasure.
what you love, and also keep helping more people. And your contribution means a lot to a lot of people.
Well, thank you for saying so. It's very kind of you. And yeah, good to see you. And keep in touch.
Yes, sir. Sure. Thank you.
Nice one. Take care.
Bye.
See ya.